everyone, along with teacher Gela and friends, the BLEPT review. I am teacher Andrea 𝗧𝗲𝗰𝗵𝗿, and now I am with you with this subject, the teaching and assessment of Macroskills. So throughout this video, you will encounter a lot of questions that may help you in your licensure examination for professional teachers, and as well as in these questions, you are able to apply your knowledge about this subject. And of course, you are encouraged to answer it one by one, and you will be given a time for you to answer the questions. Are you ready? If you're ready, let's go. For your first question, let's have this one. Which macro skill is being assessed when a student writes an essay on a current event? A. Listening. B. Reading. C. Writing. Your timer starts now. Alright, let's now reveal the answer. The answer for this question is writing. How come that this is the answer? Let's see. So in this statement or question, it is evident, or we can see the word writes, in which the student did, in order for him or her to be assessed. What microskill, or macroskill rather, did he or she perform? So in this way, the macro skill that the student performed is writing skill. But however, there are still two choices given. So let's explain why it is not chosen. So in letter A, which is listening, it doesn't connects with the skill portrayed by the student, which is writing an essay. On the other hand, in reading, the letter B, it is also not included to the action that the student demonstrated in the question. So, in this way, we conclude that writing is the macro skill that the student did in the scenario, which is student writes an essay on a current event. Is that clear? Alright, let's now proceed to the next one. Next is when a student gives a formal presentation in class, which skill are they primarily using? Letter A, listening. Letter B, writing. Letter C, speaking. Your timer starts now to answer this question. Alright, now let's proceed on what is the answer given in this question. So the answer for this is speaking. So speaking primarily focusing on how a person delivers the thing that he or she wanted to say. So in this way, we can see that the student gave a formal presentation in class through the use of the speaking skill. Of course, when you are presenting in front, especially informal, you are using your voice to present the things that you are presenting. Of course, it is included with PowerPoint and any instructional materials that is needed for presentation, but the main point here is you are using your speaking skill. Very good. And listening is not chosen because it is not the main skill that the student demonstrated. The student gives a formal presentation, meaning it doesn't need to just use your sense of hearing, but rather you need to use your speaking skills. On the other hand, writing is not also chosen because writing skill involves with a written presentation or anything that involves writing. Alright, is that clear? Okay, let's proceed to the third one. So Third one is a teacher plays an audio clip and asks students to answer questions about it. This activity focuses on which macro skill? A. Reading, B. Writing, or C. Listening. Alright, very good. Now let's see if your answer is correct with this one. Okay, the correct answer is listening. So in this question, we can actually see it right away, in which this activity focuses on what my macro skill is all about. So in this statement, it is presented that teacher plays an audio clip. In terms of audio clip, what are you using? Of course, your sense of hearing. So in this way, you are listening. And in this way, the students also answer the questions through the use of listening to the teacher's audio clip. The reading and writing is not applicable for this activity because the main point here is the questions presented by the teacher is not in a sense of a presentation, so the students cannot read the questions. On the other hand, in writing, the students are not instructed to write the questions, but rather they are just listening to it. Is that clear? Alright. Let's proceed to the fourth question. For the fourth question, let's have this one. Reading aloud in class primarily combines which two macro skills? So it has something to do with the two macro skills. A. Reading and writing. B. Listening and writing. Or C. Reading and speaking. Alright, now let's reveal the answer. So the answer for this one is reading and speaking. So in here, of course, you can now see the main point of this question, which is reading aloud. So in reading aloud, you are using your two macro skills, which are reading and speaking. So in this way, you are not just reading it, but you are also speaking it in class. So these two macro skills are applicable to this scenario. What are the two choices not included in this scenario? Just look at this one. Reading and writing is just focusing on reading the text itself and writing things about it. On the other hand, if we will apply it in listening and writing skill, we are just focusing on listening about the text and writing something about the text. When we use the activity, which is the reading aloud, we should apply these two macro skills, which are reading and speaking. Did you get it? Alright. Let's proceed to the fifth one. Which strategy best supports writing skill development in students? Letter A, role-playing conversations. Letter B, silent reading. Or letter C, writing a daily journal. Alright, now let's see if your answer is correct. Okay, so in here, the correct answer is writing a daily journal. In this way, we can actually see what activity that best supports writing skill development in students. So in this way, we can be able to see what are the students' strategy when it comes to writing, what are the things their vocabulary, and so on. Two choices that is not chosen are role-playing, conversations, and silent reading. So in role-playing conversations, of course, you are not using your writing skill in order for you to develop the students' way of writing, but rather it involves speaking, of course, right? So in here, it is not chosen. And the letter B is also not chosen because silent reading is under the what skill? Reading skill. Okay, very good. If you got it right, you are correct and very good. If not, go and study more. Next, a student paraphrases a paragraph in their own words. This is mainly an exercise in which macro skill? Letter A, writing. Letter B, reading. Or letter C, listening. What do you think is this exercise? Alright, now let's see if your answer is correct. Of course, writing is the answer for this one because student paraphrases the paragraph in their own words, in which writing skill is being applied. On the other hand, B and C, which are reading and listening, are not applicable for this exercise because the thing that is needed for this one is your writing skill. Okay, now let's proceed to number 7. Number 7. Which of the following is a real-life application of listening skills? A. Reading a textbook. B. Writing a poem. Or C. Following verbal instructions in a recipe. Alright, now let's see if your answer is correct. So the answer for this one is following verbal instructions in a recipe, in which you are, or the real life application is through the use of listening. So in this way, the two choices are not applicable because reading a textbook is through the use of your reading skill, and the other one is writing a poem, you are using your writing skills. So through the use of listening skills, this real-life application is applicable because in which you are following the verbal instructions in a recipe for you to create a dish. Is that clear? Okay. Next one. A teacher asks students to draft and revise a formal email. This activity targets which macro skill? A. Speaking. B. Writing. Or C. Reading. Now, let's see if your answer is correct. The answer of this question is writing because the students are instructed to draft and revise a formal email in which the use of the writing skill is applicable. On the other hand, of course, speaking and reading is not chosen because these are not applicable for this activity because you need to write or use your writing skill in order to draft and revise a formal email. You don't need to speak, you don't need to read in order for you to create one, right? Alright. Let's proceed to number 9. When a student listens to a podcast and takes notes, which two macro skills are they using? So it involves again two macro skills. A. Speaking and listening. B. Listening and writing. Or C. Writing and reading. Alright, let's now see if your answer is correct. Listening and writing is the answer for number 9 because this includes listening and writing. The student is listening to a podcast and as well as the student is also taking down notes, which include the writing skill. Speaking and listening is not applicable to this action because the student is not speaking while looking at the podcast. Yes, the student is listening, but it does not involve speaking. On the other hand, writing and reading is also not chosen because the student is not writing or even reading the podcast, but rather the student is listening and taking down notes about the podcast. So, writing and reading is not applicable for this one. Is that clear? Alright. Let's now proceed to the last one. Last item. Alright. Last but not the least, number 10. What is the most important element in effective listening? A. Interrupting politely. B. Memorizing every word. Or C. Giving full attention and understanding. Alright, let's now see if your answer is correct. So the answer for number 10 is giving full attention and understanding. In this way, the most important element in effective listening is demonstrated. Why? Because in effective listening, you are not just listening, but you are giving your full attention and your own understanding. The two choices are not applicable because you don't need to interrupt politely and memorize every word that the speaker is giving or speaking in front. So, the most important element in effective listening is giving full attention and understanding. Clear? Okay. Well, that's the end of our review for today. I hope you learned a lot and I know you will ace your LET if you will just review and learn more things about it. And I hope you enjoyed our review for today. Goodbye and have a nice day.